Hi, everybody, and thanks for joining our weekly podcast. I'm Shelley Cohan, and I'm very excited to welcome Lauren Thermos, General Manager of Atelier. Welcome, Lauren.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
What I love about having you here on Retail Unwrapped is that you are a self-professed addict for disruption. And we love talking about disruption. And you actually have a business background, both in marketing and business, but you come from some pretty impressive brands like Elf Beauty, Revlon, L'Oreal, Whole Foods, Target. I mean, the list can go on and on. So what we're going to talk about today is really about the major challenge facing beauty and CPG companies today in terms of product development, supply chain, and manufacturing process. So welcome, Lauren.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. I'm a beauty nerd, and we're at the very interesting juncture right now where we're seeing disruption across the whole company organizations, from the front end to the back end. So excited to have this conversation and share a little bit more about what I'm doing at Atelier.
That's great. And you know what's interesting is I've always looked at beauty as kind of ahead of like retail as a general segment. Like beauty's always been more innovative. Beauty's been, further out with the marketing initiatives. I always feel like there's retail and then beauty's one step ahead. But now beauty is moving so fast through culture, commerce, creativity, and it's really reshaping how brands are being built, discovered, and sold. So let's start with that idea.
Yeah, honestly, if you think of just even the last couple of weeks, so much has happened in the beauty landscape. The acquisitions, you've got L'Oreal buying Caring, you've got Rare Beauty, like you've the Selena Gomez buying Kate Somerville from Unilever just 2 weeks ago. So we're really seeing disruption at every level, and the legacy brands trying to keep up through acquisition, and then those indie brands and celeb brands like a Rare Beauty really stepping into becoming the next frontier of these holding companies that we've seen in the legacy world. So we're really seeing a shifting of the guard. I think, if you look at all the retail pieces as well, like the speed in which you can buy and shop and where you need to sell, like a CMO has a very big job right now. It's not just driving growth. It's like thinking about how do you actually get to market, and that speed to market, and the saying like you need to move at the speed of culture couldn't be more true when we're thinking about the reduction in friction between platforms like TikTok, who is now like the 8th biggest beauty shopping destination, to what we were talking about recently in agentic AI and Walmart partnering with ChatGPT. So that time between making a decision or even researching and then buying is reducing, and it's really putting everybody in a place where you have to think about what is next, how do I keep up, and how do I do that economically. You've got Estee Lauder, layoffs, we've seen it at Coty. So there's really a tension right now of how do you survive in this world where you have to move quickly in regards to your consumer preferences, be everywhere at once, and then also innovate in those channels so you're bringing the newness and the consumer, the beauty consumer specifically, is looking for. And the legacy systems don't necessarily cater to that. So we're really seeing every organization type, from legacy to the indie scale-ups, struggling with the how do I keep up and how do I remain profitable in this climate.
It's so true. And I want to go back. You mentioned something about the CMO job, and we actually have had, I don't know, 3 or 4 podcasts specifically about that CMO role change. And it is dramatic. And I think in beauty, it's probably even bigger, more impactful. I also like what you said about Kate Somerville. So here's a fun fact you might not know about me, Lauren. But I helped launch the Space and K brand here in the United States. And I love Kate Somerville. That was one of the brands that was in the highly curated luxury and Space and K environment. So I love hearing that name.
And one of my first brands, I love the goat milk. They're known for it. And yeah, I'm so glad that they're getting a second life with Rare Beauty.
Me too. I do too. So the other thing that's really interesting to me is, so we have everything you just discussed, but then we have these creators, right? Beauty creators that are now a big part of brands and the sales force. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think that I'd say 2 years ago, I'd say, brands becoming studios and, being a hub for creators is the future of marketing and like how to get ahead. But over the course of the last year, what we're really seeing is the world of creators becoming not only, their own studios and their own entertainment houses, but moving into CPG and beauty, where they're really the ones that are selling the products off the shelves. And it's really easy to scoff at a creator because you look at it and go, oh, that's like another celebrity. But the fandom and the communities in which they've cultivated around them are so deep and passionate about these creators and what they're doing, that when they do move into these frontiers of CPG, or whether it be launching a beauty product, they're bringing that cult following with them. And that's something that I think as an industry we really need to keep an eye on, because you've got Hailey Bieber on one scale, which is a celebrity, but there's the big in between where they've got millions and millions of followers and a very passionate following, and that is really going to translate into the next frontier and the next gen of beauty products, which we're seeing at Sephora. We're seeing the name escapes me at the moment, but the creator, the 14-year-old with her teen range, literally sold out within the first week of launching. And then you also then have the big beauty retailers like Sephora tapping into creators to be their storefronts. So the power in which these group of creative individuals have in the world, not only in what the entertainment pieces that they're putting out, but how they're influencing and steering preferences, is huge. So I'm really excited to see what that next frontier is. I think it's only just starting to begin.
I agree. And the other thing is, we TikTok, Instagram, we kind of get that, but also YouTube. Isn't YouTube a big, huge beauty selling vehicle now?
100%. YouTube has always been, I think, I would argue it has always been. It's the digital hub and the crux that everybody, if you're listening to this and you're in beauty and you're not taking your YouTube channel seriously, it is the thing you need today. It is the new TV, and it will prevail the way in which the algorithm is set up, and it becomes your digital hub. It's kind of, you have a website and you should have a YouTube page.
So I also think it's interesting. You mentioned agentic shopping. So thank you for mentioning that. That's kind of been on my brain recently. And it's interesting because with agentic commerce, what's happening is a lot of brands are seeing less visits to the websites because the agentic AI is really the one that's curating the product list, and now you can do purchasing, as you mentioned. So talk to us a little bit about what you think the impact of agentic shopping is going to be for beauty.
Okay, it kind of takes me back to, the even TikTok shop, but back to the Amazon storefront, where beauty brands at the time, back in 2014, were like, there's no way I'm selling beauty on Amazon. Like, consumers are not going to buy beauty on Amazon. And I think we're at that juncture again, where we're seeing the agentic commerce come into these ChatGPT and Copilot environments, and we're like, no one's going to buy beauty through text and a picture and a review. But the reality is it's a distribution channel that is going to grow, and that's speeding up decision making because they're using these machines to learn, research, and the information that is getting aggregated into these LLMs is the scraping of the internet. So your credibility, your PR, your reviews, what is on your website. And so I'd argue your website's going to be even more important, because that LLM is feeding its information from these different sources. And if you're the main source and you're not up to date with your reviews or the information or the blogs or the details that you want your consumer to know, then you're going to fall behind within these spaces as they come up.
That's really interesting. The other thing that I think is really interesting is this whole, and I don't know how impactful it is specifically in beauty, but I know you know, so I'm going to ask this question, is this whole dupe culture. So is that something in beauty that's actually happening, and should brands be concerned about that?
I think that dupe culture, it's been accepted within beauty. I think we all kind of shy away and go, oh, we don't know what that is. But the reality, like in beauty and potentially in fashion as well, is this notion of looking to luxury or, high performing masstige products and then recreating those for your brand really is the way in which most brands are operating. I think I'm in a unique position where I'm seeing multiple brands come to us with different product ideas in beauty, skin, and health, and the reality is that they're all inspired by each other, referencing each other, and wanting to create a similar version because that is what is trending at the time or what they see to be the next consumer need. And there's not much room for innovation there. They really want to just make the thing because they want to get it to market quickly. You have some brands like Emco who are proud and loud about dupes, and they're $1 billion business now. Within 1 year into the US, they have scaled that business very well. And then you have Elf Beauty, where they don't talk about dupe culture as such, but we know that from creators and how they are trialing different products, that that is part of the strategy too, is that there's some likeness to certain products. And I don't think it's going to go away, because the reality for these brands is that speed is everything, and the quickest way is to potentially take the reference of something that you like, make it, and then story tell for your community and your audience, and it all becomes the marketing piece. And I've been seeing the Estee Laundries of the world on Instagram who keep the beauty industry in check, question whether there is any true innovation in the marketplace. And I do similarly, I do know there are pockets of it, but the reality is that to be able to develop true innovation and do that within less than a year is nearly seen as impossible within the beauty industry. I don't believe that, and I can tell you a little bit about it, but the traditional systems see products take up to 3 years to get to market.
Well, see, that's the thing that's so interesting, Lauren, is that you have this, technology innovation that's speeding ahead. You have the consumer shift of behavior and how they're shopping, speeding ahead. Everything's like running far ahead, except how we develop and manufacture the actual product stays the same. So how are you dealing with this disconnect?
Isn't it? It's wild. You think of all the systems, like you just said, it's like the power of social media and the speed of culture in which everything is happening and consumer preferences is changing. How could you possibly keep up? Well, the legacy systems, they're failing beauty brands. I'd say that's the thing we don't talk about. We often reference the fall of Estee Lauder, or the fall of Coty, which has just been written about in Business of Fashion, to them not being able to keep up digitally and socially. And that part is true to an extent, absolutely. Estee Lauder just launched on Amazon at the end of last year. They haven't even been on there for a year yet. But the thing we don't speak about is how these legacy houses are built upon old legacy models of supply, product development and manufacturing. And that reality takes us to at least an 18 to 36 month development time. Teams are stretched. You need people to be doing the research, the R&D, understanding, the trends, the forecasting, the selling in, whether you have a big database of contract manufacturers or your own facilities, if you have a new idea and a capability, the reality is you need someone to go find out where that capability is. And by the time you get that first sample, it's within the 12 months, you might not even be close. And so there is really this friction and challenge that I think is an existential issue across beauty and CPG, is that we just can't rely on these traditional models to get ahead and bring products to market, and products of quality and that align to your values within a 12-month period. And that's why being the general manager of Atelier, why it appealed to me was that I'd get the question at Elf, how do you get products to market so quickly? And the reality is that you need a whole bunch of people and a team sitting in these different markets where supply chain and manufacturing is happening to move quickly, and that we're not in a climate where you're getting extra headcount to be able to do that. And so being at a company where we're aggregating global supply chain resources and creating an interface for brands, we're really empowering brands to speed that process up because they don't need to add that extra headcount. We're able to literally reduce their timelines from 18 to 36 months to 3 months is our average, and we're looking at 3 to 12 months depending on the different type of product. So it's possible. It's just understanding and thinking a different way, and how to bring your R&D and development timelines up, and what do you need to do that.
I think it's interesting because when it's very difficult to do what you just described in-house. And it's fine if you're just working on one thing. If you're just working on one product innovation, maybe you could squeeze a little bit quicker of a time frame if you're a legacy brand or through the traditional, 18-month, 36-month cycle of getting new products out there. But these brands are working on multiple SKUs that they're trying to bring to market. So Atelier, I want to make sure I heard this right. You can actually bring a product to market in 3 months.
That is correct. And we have, give you a case study. So we're working with a global mass legacy color cosmetics player where I know, because I worked there back in 2017, that you can only get 4 products to market, like 4 new product launches, if that, and maybe an extension or a renovation of an existing SKU. And the reality is that they did not have the bandwidth, the people power to add more to the team in order to concurrently run additional product development the process. And so we were able to accelerate that for them. They started with 4 a year, and now we're launching 40 products a year. And that's because we can take the burden off them and concurrently run the product development process, leveraging the data, the proprietary data that we have in being able to identify, the best fit supply chains and manufacturers for the pulse or the idea that they have within the color cosmetics realm. So it's really reducing that time of discovery and research and speeding up their ability to get to a sample. But otherwise, you have, a small team could be, 2 to 5 people trying to develop across 5 to 6 different categories. It becomes really cumbersome on the team. And so we take that burden away and bring the people, the technology, and the logistics so we can accelerate the product development process all the way through to distribution and delivered goods.
I think it's even more complex in the past year or so. I think one of the things that you actually educated me on is that when you're looking into beauty products, you spend all this time sourcing suppliers, and then you end up finding out that the product actually can't be manufactured as it's designed. So you go back to square one. Then we have the tariffs and the global disruptions and raw materials that may not be around to be able to product develop. So you just don't, as a big brand trying to come out to market with many different innovations, you just don't have the flexibility to adapt, right?
Exactly. And it's a bit of a black box too. It's like, what the transparency in the supply chain manufacturing industry, it's low. You have to really be able to navigate and know where to go. And even then, it's like you're stretched. Like we're working with a heritage brand right now that, being able to deploy people into these different supplies and understand, what's going on the ground, we're able to take that lift. And then we also have the technology and the relationships that come together. So we really are helping all of our client suite right now in how to navigate tariffs and how to think about, your possible long-term strategies of diversifying your supply chains. Because I think in this climate, it's unpredictable, and you want to make sure that what you're currently, what hand you've been dealt with the current situation of tariffs, but then also plan for that unpredictability and understand, what are your options of multi-shoring, onshoring, the costs, like how do you actually go about that? So we're in a really interesting space right now where supply chain manufacturing is getting disrupted. It's not the economy and how things are happening in the US right now with the tariffs. It's all happening concurrently. So we're really well positioned in helping brands navigate that, the complexity of how to identify the best suppliers and, diversify their strategies long term.
It's really interesting. So one of my big trends for 2026 is that the new hottest job in retail is the chief geopolitical officer. And companies need someone that have a background that can help with everything you just mentioned in terms of tariff policies, trade, all of that. The other thing that some of our listeners may not know who aren't in the beauty space is that some of the products are also regulated by the FDA here in the United States, right? So that actually adds another layer of complexity, right?
Correct. Absolutely. And it's like, again, it goes back to their team's capacity. Like, you need to make sure you're compliant. Regulatory and compliance is so important, and that is something that we, as being the connector interface to the global supply chain and being an end-to-end platform, that we're able to help our customers from product development all the way through to manufacturing and distribution, like I said. And that in the middle, big chunk of that is regulation and compliance, and making sure that everything is up to date, it complies with the country of origin, and whether that be the US or globally. I think that's a big weight on teams. So that is something that within our end-to-end process is baked in. Like, it's just a non-negotiable to ensure that, you know, brands have the safety and know exactly what they're producing, and that it's compliant with the market in which they're distributing the product.
That's very interesting. So I want to ask you, just because when I was 18, well, actually, when I was like probably 16, 15, something like that, I fell in love with a beauty brand who is like America's great brand. And so it's a brand they said would never fail, and that's CoverGirl. CoverGirl was great. It's a drugstore brand. It's easy access, all of that. It could never fail. What happened with CoverGirl?
Yeah, that's a good example. It's like too big to fail, right? Like, the equity in the brand is so big that nothing could go wrong. With these legacy, like I was saying a little bit earlier, is what's failing beauty is these legacy models of supply chain and manufacturing. And whilst CoverGirl had challenges digitally and socially and staying relevant, behind it you've got a behemoth of resources and capability that, you know, only allowed CoverGirl to potentially, and I don't know this for certain, but produce a certain amount of products every year. Like, they have what they're good at, and they'd have probably a mix of contract manufacturers that they might work with. And these systems is what is slowing like a business like CoverGirl down, because when you have to go into, you know, these legacy factories that you own or the manufacturing tools that you have, you're really, you know, stuck to the linear process that you have in place, and you want to make the economics have to work. And so what happens is, and I have first-hand experience in my time in Revlon back 5 or so years ago, was that you might think of the new product, you have the impulse for the new product, like a mascara, and that's something that CoverGirl is, you know, known for. But you might not have the capability, and so you go out and, you know, get this capability. You create the tooling, you get your manufacturing in place, and then speed up, you know, to 18 months later, no one wants mascara. It's not what they wanted. And so you've got the tool you've stuck with. You might not have the most performant product, and you also then up against the consumer that's like, actually today I don't want mascara. Lip is trending. That means that is a lot of sunk cost for a business. And
Absolutely.
This is not unique to CoverGirl. This is across all those big players. If anyone is listening to this, I would be surprised if there was any reluctance to nod your head and go, yeah, that definitely happens. Because then what happens from here is a domino effect. You have already sunk the cost. You now need to move this stock, or it truly is sunk cost. And that's when the marketing budget gets started to eat away, because you need to push this thing out and make sure your customer base is aware of this product. And some brands do it better than others, but there really is the risk of, you know, taking the time, taking the 18 months to 36 to make the product. You're really taking that leap of faith in hoping that that is still relevant and what your consumer wants. And if it's not, like I said, it chips away from the thing that, you know, is pushing forward and helping you generate that awareness and equity. And then you end up taking away from other initiatives. Unfortunately, it becomes all about the product, anniversarizing the product, trying to push the product and move it and stay productive at the retailers. And that's the tension. And I think one of the big reasons that CoverGirl has found themselves in this situation, and it has been one of the reasons, you know, the Estee Lauder are in this position too. They haven't innovated their way in which they work behind the scenes on the product development and supply chain manufacturing side. It hasn't changed.
And Lauren, what's interesting, and you didn't bring this up, but I know you know this, is everything you did, all these sunken costs, these investments, all that, just, you know, that margin just shrinks that margin down, and, you know, it makes it very difficult to be profitable.
Exactly. And so when it's exactly it, the profit margin, and then you're trying to back that and you're being relevant and putting the marketing dollars in, there's really not much room to move. And then when it really comes back to it being a people business. So how do you innovate and increase your innovation velocity every year without adding more cost? And so a CFO looking at a P&L is going, I hear you, you need to innovate and bring new products to market as a beauty company, and that's how you sell newness and grow a brand, but the economics just don't make sense. So therefore you're kind of stuck in this infinity loop of, okay, we're in the 18 to 36 month cycle, we can bring 4 products to life, let's take a bet, take a punt, and it loops because you're unable to free yourself from that. And so I think it's something we're going to continue to see over the next few years, because if the system doesn't change, or how we think about product development, supply chains and manufacturing, then these companies are going to still be in the same spot, the Unilevers, the P&Gs of the world.
So I know, Lauren, you and I have a common mission in the world. Well, in the retail world, that is. We both want to make the retail industry better, right? So we do a lot of work in our own ways. And so tell me, Lauren, I know you want to make a difference in this change of innovation and product development. Tell me, like, how would you summarize what is it you want to do for the industry?
I hope that to inspire the industry to, see there's another way to do things. And I think there's a lot of fear right now in that AI is taking jobs, and, not sure how to actually leverage AI and the capabilities to create commercial outcomes. But what I'd say is strip that fear away. There is so much out there, and being Atelier, this is shameless plug as one, is reimagining, what is possible is so important at all stages within a business, and being able to preempt the future. Like if I think about 2014 and all the e-com bubble that was created, and beauty went digital, a lot of brands at that time just shook their head and were like, no, that's not real. Well, I hate to say that we're in this time again, and it's real. And so if I can educate and help someone change their mind about the future of product development and manufacturing, and provide the resources and the tools, and even my own mentorship on this is changing. CPG and beauty is changing, and the way in which it's going to happen is that we're going to get a networked supply chain and manufacturing approach. You can't just rely on your own capability to move forward. And so that's what I hope is people taking this and being inspired to look a layer deeper. And it's not even becoming an early adopter, it's really understanding the landscape shifts and the changes, and being open to them, and taking that taking your sunglasses off, and seeing that this industry is it is being disrupted. It is happening now, and it hasn't in many, many, many years. So getting excited for that next frontier.
Well, Lauren, thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. And I love what you're doing, and I admire the work you're doing for the industry. So thank you.
Oh, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.